Hey, it's Mike again. I wanted to talk about the Tulsa massacre that happened 100 years ago this past Sunday. Um, and, why critical race theory and teaching the true history of what went on in this country is important. Well, even according to the papers, at the time, it was started all because a young black man was arrested for basically stepping on a young white woman's foot, and that was called assault. He was put in jail, and a group of white men came to lynch him. And, black men in the town came to, protect him, were armed. We're not sure who fired the first shot, but this led to a brutal white supremacist killing of over 300 black people. To my understanding, tensions had been boiling up in this community, well, in Tulsa, because black people were actually doing quite well. It was known as Black Wall Street. They had their own banks, their own business, black owned businesses, banks, restaurants, everything. They were doing very well. And Tulsa had only been around 10, 15 years at that point. And this black community was thriving. And, for of course racist reasons, this was the boiling point. And they went and they killed over 300 people. They burned over 1,000 buildings to the ground and made over 10,000 people homeless. And this isn't something we really know a lot about, 20, 30 years ago. Well, 20 years ago. I didn't know anything about it until 10 when my wife, who's from Tulsa, told me about it because she's inquisitive. She had heard it from black people she knew, but no white people would talk about it. She was able to go to the library and actually find some records, kind of buried, hard to find, about it. And she talked to her mother, who should have just said her grandmother, had told her that she remembers wagging and trigger warning truckloads of bodies being driven past their house from Black Wall Street at the night and day and the day after. So this was a brutal, terrible attack, and we know nothing about it. And these type of situations have happened across our country, north, south, and wherever. And that there were communities, black communities, that were successful, that had their own businesses and everything going on. We hear all the time from white people that, well, why don't they fix their communities? Well, even during segregation, they were trying to they were making their community work and doing well. And certain groups of white people, white supremacists, have a problem with that and decide to, kill them, run them out of town, put them in prison, falsely accused. And the thing is, we need to actually understand our history and understand what's happened in this country, instead of just whitewashing everything as we are the best country on earth and we've never done anything wrong. That's just stupid. And with all the things going on, with all the protests, Black Lives Matter, the different things we've heard for a long time, like school to prison pipeline, that there's more black people in prison, more minorities in general in prison than whites. All these different things, and the constant bringing up of systemic racism. I think for everybody, it'd be good to understand why these things keep being brought up, why people are talking about them, and the history behind this stuff. Instead of, I don't want to know, we're the best, we're the greatest. No. If we're the greatest, we can handle the truth. And there's a difference between believing in the myths or believing in the history. I'm a very patriotic person, actually, but I don't believe in whitewashing everything to make all our ancestors look good. They weren't all good. You know, I mean, there were some, you know, violent bastard events that have happened throughout this country. And understanding how those have disenfranchised other people is important, and important for us to move forward. I mean, there's stuff that I didn't understand that had gone on in this country, and it helps me understand, or at least be a better ally, I would say, to people of color, to know what this stems from. So, anyway, we need to remember this day. And remember that it was hidden for so long. And understand, black people, there are a good number of black people that know about these events. And then there's, groups of white people that, brush it under the rug and never happened. And, if the massacre hadn't happened, think about how that community would be today. Think about if they never dealt with that happening, how great of a city it could have become. Because, it had stuff going on with New York and stock market and all that. And yes, 1929, the stock market fell. So, I don't know. But, if they would have fallen apart too because of that. But hopefully you get my point. That they were being very successful and get destroyed. So, these are things we need to understand. Sorry to ramble at the end, but just want to make sure I get the point across. That's just a thought.